Sarah Martinez had always loved the sound of rain on her cottage roof. Living near Willow Creek for 15 years, she found comfort in the gentle patter that often lulled her to sleep. But on this particular Tuesday evening in late September, the rain drumming above her head carried a different rhythm, urgent, relentless, and growing stronger by the hour. She stood at her kitchen window, watching the creek that ran behind her property. The water level had risen dramatically since morning, transforming the usually peaceful stream into a churning brown torrent. Debris tumbled past, tree branches, an old tire, what looked like someone's porch furniture. Sarah pressed her palm against the cool glass and frowned. In all her years here, she had never seen Willow Creek this angry. The weather reports had warned of heavy rainfall, but nothing had prepared the small town of Millbrook for what meteorologists would later call a 1,000-year flood event. 3 storm systems had converged unexpectedly, creating a perfect storm that would dump 8 inches of rain in just 6 hours across the valley. Sarah's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A text from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who lived upstream. Water getting high. "You okay down there?" She quickly typed back that she was fine, though a growing uneasiness settled in her chest like a stone. The 42-year-old elementary school teacher had moved to this quiet corner of Millbrook after her divorce, seeking peace and a fresh start. The cottage, with its cheerful yellow paint and small garden, had felt like a sanctuary. Now, as she watched the creek swell beyond its banks, that sanctuary felt increasingly fragile. By 9 o'clock, the rain showed no signs of stopping. Sarah had already moved her car to higher ground on her neighbor's driveway and brought her photo albums upstairs, just as a precaution. She told herself she was being overly cautious, but something in the air felt charged with danger. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely, plunging her cottage into darkness. Sarah fumbled for her flashlight and called the emergency line, but the circuits were busy. Outside, she could hear the roar of water growing louder, more insistent. When she shined her light toward the backyard, her breath caught in her throat. The creek had jumped its banks entirely, and muddy water was creeping across her lawn toward the house. Marcus Thompson was 3 miles away at Scout Camp Riverside when the emergency call came through. The 19-year-old Eagle Scout was volunteering as a counselor for the weekend youth camping trip, helping 12 middle schoolers roast marshmallows around a campfire under the recreation hall's covered pavilion. The rain had forced their outdoor activities inside, but the kids were still having fun playing games and sharing ghost stories. Marcus's phone rang just as he was settling a dispute over s'mores ingredients. The caller ID showed the Millbrook Emergency Coordination Center. His stomach tightened as he answered. "Marcus, this is Chief Peterson. We've got a flash flood situation developing fast. The creek systems are overflowing, and we're getting reports of people trapped. I need every able body with water rescue training. Can you respond?" Marcus glanced around the pavilion at the young faces illuminated by battery-powered lanterns. As the senior counselor, he couldn't abandon his post, but he also couldn't ignore a call for help. "Chief, I've got 12 kids here at camp. What's the situation?" "It's bad, son. We've got multiple water rescues in progress. The creek by your location is still manageable, but downstream it's chaos. If you can't come, I understand, but..." A tremendous crash cut through their conversation. Through the pavilion windows, Marcus could see a massive tree falling across the camp's access road. They were effectively cut off from the main route anyway. "Actually, Chief, we might be safer staying put for now. That tree just blocked our exit. But if you need me for local rescues around here, I'm your guy." "Copy that. Stay alert. We might need you to help evacuate some of the houses along Willow Creek. I'll keep you posted." Marcus hung up and looked at his young charges, who had grown quiet, sensing the seriousness in his voice. These kids ranged from 11 to 14, all members of the local scout troop. They trusted him to keep them safe, and he wouldn't let them down. But he also knew that other people in their community might need help tonight. "Okay, everyone," he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "We're going to have a bit of an adventure. The rain has made the roads unsafe, so we're staying put tonight. Think of it as an extended campout." 11-year-old Jamie raised her hand. "Are we in danger?" Marcus knelt down to her eye level. "We're in a very safe location here on high ground, but some people in town might need help tonight, so we need to be ready to lend a hand if called upon. That's what scouts do, right?" The kids nodded, their faces serious but not panicked. Marcus felt proud of their composure. He began organizing them into groups, assigning older scouts to watch younger ones, distributing extra batteries for flashlights and creating a communication plan. If tonight turned into the emergency he suspected it would be, these kids would need structure and purpose to stay calm. At 10:30, Marcus's phone rang again. Chief Peterson's voice was strained and urgent. "Marcus, I need you at 428 Creek Road. Female resident, possibly trapped. Every other unit is tied up with rescues upriver. Can you get there?" Marcus looked out into the storm. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and he could hear the distant roar of rushing water. He thought of the woman who might be trapped, probably scared and alone. Then he looked at the 12 young faces watching him expectantly. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he told the chief. He gathered the older scouts around him. "Listen up. I need to help someone who might be in trouble. Jake and Emma, you're in charge while I'm gone. Everyone stays inside the pavilion. No one goes outside for any reason. Keep the younger kids calm and dry. I'll be back as soon as I can." 15-year-old Jake, an experienced scout who Marcus had mentored for 2 years, stepped forward. "We've got this, Marcus. Go help whoever needs it." Marcus grabbed his rescue gear from his truck: rope, life jacket, first aid kit, and a powerful waterproof flashlight. He had trained for water rescues but had never faced anything like this. As he drove carefully through the flooded streets toward Creek Road, debris bouncing off his windshield, he prayed he wouldn't be too late. Meanwhile, Sarah was fighting panic as water began seeping under her front door. What had started as a gentle trickle an hour ago was now a steady stream. She had moved everything she could to the second floor, but she was beginning to realize that might not be enough. The cottage felt like it was slowly being swallowed by the night and the relentless water. She stood at her upstairs bedroom window, shining her flashlight into the storm, hoping someone, anyone. The water in her yard was now knee-deep and rising fast. Her little yellow cottage, her sanctuary, was becoming a trap. In the distance, she could see headlights moving slowly along the flooded road. Someone was coming, fighting through the storm to reach her neighborhood. Sarah pressed her face to the glass and prayed that help was finally on the way. The storm showed no mercy, and the night was far from over. What happened next would test both Sarah's will to survive and Marcus's training in ways neither of them could have imagined. The real crisis was just beginning, and the choices made in the next few hours would determine whether this night ended in tragedy or triumph. As Marcus's truck struggled through the deepening water on Creek Road, his headlights caught sight of a yellowed cottage, nearly surrounded by the rushing flood. In the upstairs window, a flashlight blinked desperately. 3 short flashes, 3 long, 3 short. Someone inside knew Morse code and was sending an SOS. The water was moving faster than he had expected, and Marcus realized this rescue would be far more dangerous than anything he had trained for. But turning back wasn't an option. Someone's life hung in the balance, and he was their only hope in the darkness. Marcus parked his truck on the highest ground he could find, still 50 yards from the cottage. The water between him and the house was moving with terrifying speed, carrying branches and debris that could easily knock a person unconscious. He strapped on his life jacket and secured his rescue rope to the truck's trailer hitch, then waded into the torrent. The current immediately tried to sweep him downstream. The water, ice-cold and murky with mud, reached his waist within just a few steps. Marcus had trained for swiftwater rescue, but training in a controlled environment was nothing like this chaos. Every step forward required tremendous effort, and he could feel the power of the flood trying to tear his feet from under him. Inside the cottage, Sarah heard splashing and voices outside. She pressed her face to the window and saw a figure in the water, fighting against the current with a flashlight beam cutting through the rain. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by terror as she watched the person struggle against the powerful flow. "I'm up here!" she shouted, pounding on the window glass. "The stairs are flooding." Marcus heard her voice and looked up to see her silhouette in the second-floor window. The water around the cottage was now flowing so fast that it created standing waves as it hit the building's foundation. Getting to the front door would be impossible. The current was too strong, but he noticed something that might work. A large oak tree beside the house had a branch that stretched close to the woman's window. He fought his way to the tree, using its trunk to brace himself against the current. The bark was slippery, but he managed to pull himself up onto the lowest branch. From there, he could see into the cottage more clearly. The first floor was completely flooded now, with furniture floating and bumping against the ceiling. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he called out. Sarah slid the window open. and rain immediately poured into her bedroom. Yes, I can hear you. Who are you? My name is Marcus. I'm with the emergency response team. We're going to get you out of there, but I need you to listen carefully to everything I tell you, okay? Sarah nodded, though she wasn't sure he could see her clearly in the darkness. Okay, but the water, it's coming up the stairs now. It's almost to the second floor. Marcus looked down at the foundation of the house. The water was indeed rising rapidly, and worse, he could see that the current was beginning to undercut the cottage's foundation. Small chunks of concrete were breaking away. This building might not stand much longer. We need to move fast, he called to her. Is there anything you can use as a rope? Bed sheets, clothing, anything strong enough to hold your weight? Sarah looked around her bedroom frantically. I have bed sheets, but I don't know if they're strong enough. Tie them together. Make the strongest knots you can. We're going to get you from the window to this tree, and then I can help you get to safety. While Sarah worked on creating her improvised rope, Marcus positioned himself on the oak branch closest to her window. The branch was thick and sturdy, but it was still a good 8 feet from the cottage. Even if her sheet rope worked, she would have to trust it with her life-overrushing floodwater that would sweep her away instantly if she fell. Behind him, Marcus could hear his phone buzzing with text messages, probably updates from the other scout counselors checking on his progress. He thought of the 12 kids waiting for him back at the camp, trusting him to return safely. But right now, this woman's life took priority over everything else. I've got 3 sheets tied together, Sarah called out. But I'm scared they won't hold. Test them, Marcus instructed. Tie one end to something solid in there and pull on it as hard as you can. Sarah secured the sheet rope to her bedroom radiator, an old cast iron unit that was bolted to the floor. She pulled with all her strength, and the knots held. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Marcus extended his rescue rope toward her window. I'm going to throw you my line. Tie it to your sheet rope. That way, even if your sheets tear, my rope will still hold you. The throw took 3 attempts in the wind and rain, but finally Sarah caught the end of his rope. Her hands were shaking as she tied it securely to a makeshift line. Below them, the water continued to rise, now lapping at the windowsill of the first floor. Before you come across, I need to know, can you swim? Yes, but not in water like that. You won't have to swim if everything goes according to plan, but I need you to know that if you fall, don't fight the current. Let it carry you and try to grab onto anything solid you can reach. I'll come after you. Sarah looked down at the churning water below and felt her courage waver. The gap between the window and the tree seemed enormous. One slip, one failed knot, and she would be swept away into the darkness. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. Marcus heard the fear in her voice and recognized it. He had felt the same terror during his first cliff rescue training, when he had to rappel down a sheer rock face with nothing but rope and faith to keep him alive. Listen to me, he said, his voice calm and steady despite the chaos around them. My name is Marcus Thompson. I've been doing rescue work for 4 years. I've never lost anyone, and I'm not going to start tonight. You're going to make it across this gap, and then I'm going to help you get to safety. But I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that? Something in his voice, the quiet confidence mixed with genuine care, made Sarah's fear transform into determination.
Yes, I can trust you.
Good. Now climb out onto the window ledge. Keep hold of both ropes, the sheet rope and my rescue line. Move slowly. Test each handhold before you trust it. Sarah took a deep breath and swung her leg over the windowsill. The rain hit her immediately, soaking through her clothes and making everything slippery. The window ledge was narrow, barely wide enough for her feet, and the drop below seemed endless in the darkness. She gripped both ropes and started to edge her way along the ledge toward the tree. Each step required every ounce of concentration she possessed. The wind whipped her hair into her eyes, and the rain made it almost impossible to see where she was going. Halfway across, disaster struck. Her foot slipped on the wet ledge, and suddenly she was hanging by her hands, her legs dangling over the rushing water. The sheet rope stretched and creaked ominously under her full weight. "Hold on!" Marcus shouted. "Don't let go! I'm coming to you!" He began working his way out further on the oak branch, moving as quickly as he dared. The branch bent under his weight, bringing him closer to Sarah, but also closer to the breaking point. Sarah's arms were burning with the effort of holding her entire body weight. She could feel her grip starting to slip, and panic began to override her determination. "I can't hold on much longer." "Yes, you can," Marcus called back. "Look at me. Don't look down at the water. Just look at me." She raised her head and met his eyes through the rain. Even in the darkness, she could see the unwavering determination on his face. He was risking his own life to save her, moving further out on a branch that might break at any moment. "I'm almost there," he said. 5 more seconds. "Count with me. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 5, Marcus reached out and grabbed her wrist with one hand while maintaining his grip on the branch with the other. "I've got you." Now we climb together. With Marcus helping to support her weight, Sarah managed to get her feet back onto the window ledge. Together, they worked their way toward the oak tree, moving slowly and carefully. When they finally reached the trunk, Sarah collapsed against it, exhausted and shaking. "We're not safe yet," Marcus reminded her gently. "We need to get to higher ground." From the tree, they could climb down to a point where the water was only chest deep. Marcus went first, then helped Sarah down. The current was still strong, but with the rescue rope secured to his truck, they were able to work their way back to safety. When they finally reached Marcus's truck, both of them were exhausted, cold, and covered in mud. But they were alive. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in an emergency blanket from Marcus's rescue kit, watching as her cottage disappeared completely under the rising water. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You saved my life." Marcus was already on the radio with Chief Peterson, reporting the successful rescue. "Just doing what I was trained to do," he replied, but privately, he knew this rescue had pushed him far beyond his training. They had both relied on courage and trust to survive. The night wasn't over yet. Reports were coming in of more people trapped throughout the valley. But this rescue had given Marcus confidence that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Sometimes when the water rises and the situation seems hopeless, ordinary people find extraordinary strength within themselves. Chief Peterson's voice crackled through the radio as Marcus drove Sarah to the emergency shelter at Millbrook High School. "Good work on the Creek Road rescue, Marcus. But we've got another situation developing. The dam at Silver Lake is showing stress fractures. If it fails, the entire downtown area will be underwater in minutes." Sarah, still wrapped in the emergency blanket, looked at Marcus with concern. "You need to go help with that." "I can make it to the shelter on my own from here." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not leaving you until I know you're safe. Besides, I need to get back to the scout camp first. I've got 12 kids who are counting on me." When they reached the high school, the gymnasium had been converted into an emergency shelter. Red Cross volunteers were distributing hot coffee and dry clothes to flood victims. Sarah hesitated before getting out of the truck. "I don't have anywhere to go after this," she admitted. "My house, my car, everything I owned was in that cottage." "You have your life," Marcus reminded her gently. "Everything else can be replaced. Trust me on that." A Red Cross volunteer approached the truck and helped Sarah inside. Marcus watched until she was safely settled with a hot meal and warm clothes before driving back towards Scout Camp Riverside. The roads were treacherous, with water still running over several low bridges, but his truck managed to push through. When he arrived at the camp pavilion, he found 12 anxious faces waiting for him. The older scouts had done an excellent job keeping everyone calm and organized, but relief was visible on every face when Marcus walked through the door. "Did you save someone?" asked Jamie, the 11-year-old who had been most worried earlier. "We all saved someone tonight," Marcus replied. "By working together and staying calm, you all made it possible for me to help a woman who was trapped in the flood." Jake, the 15-year-old he had left in charge, pulled him aside. "Marcus, we've been monitoring the emergency radio. They're talking about evacuating this area too. The dam might fail." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his wet clothes. If the dam failed, their current location on slightly higher ground wouldn't be enough protection. They would need to move to much higher elevation, and they would need to do it quickly. He gathered all the scouts around him. "Okay, everyone, we're going to have another adventure. We need to move to higher ground as a safety precaution. I want everyone to pack only essential items: water, food, warm clothes, and your emergency gear."
We're going to hike up to Ridge Point.
Ridge Point was a rocky outcrop about a mile uphill from their current location. It would be a challenging hike in the dark and rain, especially with younger kids, but it was the safest place within reach. Emma, a 14-year-old who had been scouting since she was 6, stepped forward. "Ridge Point in this weather with the little kids? That's going to be tough." "I know," Marcus acknowledged, "but tough is what scouts do. We're going to work as a team. Older scouts will pair up with younger ones. We'll use the buddy system, and no one gets left behind. As they prepared to leave, Marcus's phone rang again. Chief Peterson sounded exhausted. Marcus, where are you with those kids?
We're about to evacuate to Ridge Point. What's the situation with the dam?
It's holding for now, but barely. Listen, we've got reports of a family trapped in a house right below the dam. If we could get to them before it fails. Marcus looked at his 12 young charges, then made the hardest decision of his life. Chief, I can't abandon these kids. But I can get them to safety and then come help. Son, if that dam fails, there won't be time. It's now or never. Marcus closed his eyes and thought. Then he opened them and looked at Jake and Emma, his two most experienced scouts. They were young, but they had been training for years. They knew basic wilderness survival, navigation, and emergency procedures. Jake, Emma, come here. He pulled them aside and spoke quietly. I need you two to lead everyone to Ridge Point. Follow the marked trail, use your compasses if you get disoriented, and set up camp in the shelter cave we used last summer. Can you do that? Both teenagers looked scared but determined. What about you? Emma asked. There's a family that needs help. I have to try to reach them. Jake grabbed Marcus's arm. That's crazy dangerous. You could die. People are definitely going to die if no one tries to help them. You two are ready for this leadership challenge. I've been training you for 2 years. Trust your skills and take care of the younger kids. Marcus quickly transferred his emergency supplies to the 2 older scouts, gave them final instructions, and watched as they organized the group for the hike to Ridge Point. His heart ached to leave them. But he knew they were capable. More importantly, he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try to help the trapped family. He drove toward the dam through roads that were becoming increasingly dangerous. Trees were down everywhere, and the water was deeper now than it had been an hour ago. When he reached the area below the dam, he could see the house in question, a small ranch home that was almost completely surrounded by water. The dam loomed above it, a massive concrete wall that was designed to hold back millions of gallons of water. But even in the darkness, Marcus could see the stress fractures Chief Peterson had mentioned. Water was seeping through in several places, and the entire structure was vibrating under the pressure. Marcus waded toward the house, fighting the same kind of current he had faced at Sarah's cottage. But this time he knew that if the dam failed, there would be no rescue. The wall of water would be 30 feet high and moving at incredible speed. He reached the house and pounded on the door. Emergency rescue. Is anyone in there? A man's voice answered from inside. Yes. We're here. We can't get out. How many people? 4. Me, my wife, and 2 kids. Marcus looked up at the dam and saw water spurting from a new crack that hadn't been there minutes ago. They had very little time. I need you to listen carefully, he called through the door. We're going to have to move fast. The dam above us is failing. Do you understand? The door opened, and Marcus saw a man about his own age holding a flashlight. Behind him stood a woman and 2 children, a boy and a girl who looked to be around 8 and 10 years old. I'm Marcus with emergency rescue. We need to get to high ground immediately. The water is too deep to walk, so we're going to have to help each other. Can everyone swim? The father nodded. We can all swim, but the kids are scared. Being scared is okay. It means you're paying attention. Here's what we're going to do. I have rescue rope. We're going to tie everyone together so no one gets separated. The adults will support the children. We're going to move slowly but steadily toward that hill over there. Everyone understand? As Marcus secured the family with his rescue rope, he heard a sound that made his blood freeze. A deep, groaning noise from the direction of the dam. More water was spurting through the cracks now, and the entire structure was visibly shaking. We need to move now, he said urgently. They entered the water as a group, with Marcus leading and the father bringing up the rear. The current was strong, but by staying connected and moving as a unit, they were able to make progress toward higher ground. They had covered about half the distance when the dam failed. The sound was like nothing Marcus had ever heard. A combination of thunder, earthquake, and tornado all rolled into one. Behind them, a wall of water 30 feet high came roaring down the valley, destroying everything in its path. Run! Marcus shouted, though running was impossible in the deep water. They fought their way forward with desperate energy, the adults half carrying the children through the rushing water. Marcus could feel the ground vibrating under his feet as the massive flood wave approached. They reached the hillside just as the wave hit the area where they had been standing moments before. The house they had just evacuated disappeared instantly, swept away like a toy. If they had delayed even 30 seconds longer, all 5 of them would have been killed. They climbed the hill as far as they could go, then collapsed on solid ground, exhausted but alive. Behind them, the valley had become a raging river that would take days to recede. Marcus's phone had been destroyed by the water, but the father's phone still worked. They called for help and learned that the evacuation of the downstream area had been successful. No lives had been lost, though property damage was extensive. Hours later, when rescue helicopters finally reached them, Marcus learned that his 12 scouts had made it safely to Ridge Point under Jake and Emma's leadership. They had set up camp, kept everyone warm and dry, and even managed to help rescue 2 other families who had been hiking in the area when the flood hit. 3 months after the flood, the town of Millbrook held a ceremony to honor the heroes of that terrible night. Marcus received a medal for his water rescues, but he insisted that Jake and Emma share the stage with him. The real heroes, he said, were the young people who had stepped up when leadership was needed. Sarah Martinez, who had lost everything but her life, stood in the audience and watched the ceremony. She had relocated to another town, but she had driven back to Millbrook to be present for this day. During the reception afterward, she approached Marcus. "I never properly thanked you," she said. "You saved my life. You fought to save your own life," Marcus replied. "I just provided a rope and some encouragement. It was more than that. You gave me hope when I had given up. You showed me that even in the darkest moments there are people willing to risk everything to help others." Marcus looked around at the crowd of survivors, first responders and volunteers who had pulled their community through the disaster. "That's what people do," he said simply. "When the waters rise, we hold each other against the current." The flood had taken homes, possessions, and peace of mind, but it had also revealed something important about human nature, that in the face of overwhelming natural forces, ordinary people are capable of extraordinary courage, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to let go. Marcus continued volunteering with the Scout program, and his experience that night became part of the training curriculum for water rescue certification. The 12 young people who had been under his care that night all continued in scouting, and several of them eventually became emergency responders themselves. Sarah rebuilt her life slowly but successfully, and she never forgot the lesson of that night. When faced with her own challenges in the years that followed, she would remember the voice in the darkness telling her to hold on, to trust, to never give up. Sometimes she realized being saved means learning how to save yourself, and sometimes it means learning when to reach out and trust that someone will be there to grab your hand. The flood was a disaster that changed many lives, but it also revealed a truth that the people of Millbrook would carry with them forever. In the worst of times, the best of human nature emerges, and no one has to face the rising waters alone.